Hi, my name's Kevin Martin, coming to you from our Clairol Studios here in Portland, New York. Today we're going to talk to you about benchmarking for commercial grape production. We are into the 2018 crop year, and we are continuing down a road of a struggling Concord market. This is about year 6 for us, and a lot of our growers are concerned about costs and benchmarking and comparing the costs they have on their farm to other farms. So I want to touch a little bit on fixed expenses, and fixed expenses for our growers from grower to grower are actually the most variable expenses we have. So efficiency is defined in our Concord industry by how well of a job you do in controlling your fixed costs. This large variance is anywhere between $400 and $800 per acre. A lot of this is driven by capital investment. So harvesters purchased in 2001 were $170,000, and a harvester today is more like $350,000. And the growers that purchase those harvesters divide that capital up amongst all of their acreage, which could vary anywhere from 50 acres to 400 acres. So the efficiency of that investment obviously depends on the size of the farm and the timing of the investment. And that extends across all capital investments. A harvester is just a good example of how extreme those differences can get. Insurance costs and debt costs also vary significantly from farmer to farmer. Both continue to rise as insurance just goes up for everybody everywhere. And debt has been increasing in the Schedule Fs that we review because more than likely operating costs are not necessarily being covered, or not enough operating costs and fixed expenses are not being covered by the revenue that's being generated. So we see more growers taking on more debt. So the goal really is to be sustainable is really not to achieve the benchmark of $600 an acre, but actually beat that benchmark. We have a lot of growers that struggle with profitability, and growers that have low capital investment per acre do relatively well, except in really the leanest of years. And by minimizing your capital investment to the better side of that average, allows the grower with financial flexibility to cope with lower yields or lower prices. Maybe not both at the same time, but in a lot of years they will be profitable when the average grower is not. So starting a grape farm is extremely difficult. When we benchmark for a new enterprise, we struggle to come up with cash flow models that allow the business to make sense unless there is some sort of startup assistance. So mostly what we see in succession planning or generational transfers is a senior generation maybe not incurring a lot of costs in helping a junior generation, but certainly allowing the use of machinery or transferring land at a reduced rate, doing something to sort of subsidize the existence or creation of a new farm or expansion of a new partnership that allows that farm to exist. In doing so, I think a lot of farms can see profitability in the 6th year, potentially sooner. Conservatively, certainly within the 10th year, it becomes very practical for a new grower to be profitable if the subsidies are reasonable. A grower just coming in off the street and starting a farm, particularly a medium-sized farm, but really any size farm, will really struggle to benchmark and model a cash flow in their business plan that makes any sense at all. A 5% interest rate, because they're going to need to take on some debt to start this farm, really means it's very unlikely that they'll be profitable within the first 30 years of their operation. Another thing in terms of benchmarking for new enterprises is further minimizing capital investment. So there's a lot of intense investment going on for a beginning grower, and that may involve planting vineyards, purchasing vineyards. If they're using the equipment of another farmer for a free or reduced rate in exchange for labor, one of the key areas that they can save is not necessarily purchasing their own machine harvester. In a typical scenario, a 200-acre farm is going to do really well with an investment in a harvester, but a new grower that has debt service across the board on their other capital and their land really struggles with servicing that much debt, and it tends to be more profitable to look into borrowing a harvester or making sure that they hire it done custom for at least the first 3 or 4 years. We can touch on variable costs in another podcast, but the bottom line is that variable costs on the low end are $600 an acre, and on the extreme high end are $800 to $850 an acre. So regardless of what a grower tries to do, even though a lot of growers focus their cost saving strategies in this area, they struggle to have a large impact if they don't control their fixed costs, because it just takes at least a few dollars to get the grapes from the beginning of the growing season to the end and into the plant. Depreciation on your Schedule F form tends to highlight the capital expenditures that growers struggle with efficiency. Average Schedule F depreciation exceeds $1,200 per acre. A lot of this depreciation is accelerated depreciation, and it separates their business from the reality of what's going on the ground in terms of what's actually being invested. So this $1,200 per acre is a bit misleading, but it does sort of articulate that accelerated depreciation should not necessarily be used to justify investments. In most cases, it should actually be used just to minimize your taxes, and the business reality should be driving the capital investment, which will allow a grower to minimize capital costs and increase efficiency. I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. If you have any questions or comments, please let us know down below, and we'll be happy to get back to you.